Babies cry a lot, and as parents, when our babies cry, we naturally start to wonder, is my baby hungry? Believe it or not, when a baby cries, it's actually one of the last cues that shows the baby is hungry. In this video, I'm going to share with you all of the cues baby shows before the crying, so you know baby's hungry before baby even has to cry for it. But first, hello, my name is Valerie. I blog at babywisemom.com. I've been blogging since the year 2007. I have 4 children who range in age currently from 10 to 17 years old, and I love helping parents, love parenting, and part of that is understanding if your baby is hungry or not. Let's run through hunger cue signs. The first sign of baby being hungry is your baby licking lips. So if you notice your baby starts to lick lips, then there's a good chance your baby is hungry. Another common sign is rooting. So when baby's looking for food, if your baby turns their head towards a food source or just turns the head to a side while rooting, good chance your baby is hungry. Your baby will look a lot like a baby bird and just be hungry. Now, one caveat is sometimes babies do that same motion if they're accustomed to using a pacifier and they just need to be soothed. So sometimes they do that if they're used to a pacifier, so be aware of that. If your baby does not use a pacifier, then rooting is a great and obvious sign that your baby is hungry. Another common hunger cue for a baby is your baby's fist hitting the face. That is a hunger cue that is common for newborns, not for babies who have hand-eye coordination, who've lost their motor reflex. So newborns, if their fist is hitting their face, then that's them trying to get something to suck on and out of hunger. Now again, sometimes babies try to suck on things for comfort and for soothing, which can just mean they're overstimulated. It can mean it's time for a nap, but it's also a pretty clear sign that baby is hungry. Once your baby has control over that hand, then when your baby starts sucking on that hand, then it's a good sign your baby is hungry. A really interesting hunger cue is the coughing sound, especially a cough followed by a cry. Another hunger cue is the lips being pursed. Another hunger cue is when your baby curls the tongue. This would be assuming your baby is capable of curling the tongue, but curling the tongue. And the final physical cue that your baby will give for being hungry is arching the back. And the arching the back, of course, then is followed by the crying. Now, of course, a huge benefit of following a routine like the Babywise or Baby Whisper routines that have baby eat, then have a wake time, and then sleep is that the timing of your baby's routine is another huge and obvious cue as to if your baby is hungry or not. So, if you're following the eat, wake, sleep cycle and your baby has eaten and has had a wake time and then starts to arch the back or try to suck on something, then you can pretty well deduce that your baby's actually ready for a nap and not hungry. But if your baby has just woken from a nap, and let's say it's early, so if your baby's woken, if you're doing a 3-hour cycle and your baby wakes up, it's been 3 hours since your baby ate, you're like, yeah, I know it's time, my baby's hungry. Of course my baby's hungry. But let's say your baby woke up early from a nap and you go in to check on your baby and your baby's showing some of these physical signs of hunger, and then you can guess, like, I think there's a good chance my baby is actually hungry now, which will happen often because growth spurts happen a lot. Growth spurts happen every 3 to 4 weeks. So it will be common that your baby will wake up early from a nap and need to eat. If you have questions about growth spurts, make sure that you see my video or read my blog post or both about growth spurts. I will put up an image now for you to take a screenshot of to show you so you can remember all of the common physical signs of baby being hungry. So that wraps up common hunger cues. And of course, if you've read my post or watched my video on baby sleep cues, you'll realize a lot of these cues are actually applicable for sleep and hunger. And so how do you know if these cues are hunger cues or sleep cues? Or how do you know for sure if baby really is hungry? The first thing to do is to try feeding your baby. And this is assuming that it's either it's time for your baby to eat based on your typical schedule, or if your baby's in a growth spurt, it still would be time in a growth spurt cycle for your baby to be eating. So you just try feeding your baby. You try it and see what happens. If your baby takes a full feeding, then you know those were hunger cues. You know your baby was hungry, needed to eat, and good chance you're either in a growth spurt or maybe baby just didn't take a good full feeding for the last feeding. For whatever reason, your baby needed more food right now, even if it was early. If your baby does not take a full feeding and is still showing some of those signs, you can try soothing your baby. Or if you're pretty confident, I don't think my baby's hungry, you can always try soothing first and see if that works. You can try a pacifier, you can try a swing, you can try holding your baby and doing a contact nap. There are a lot of things you can do to try to soothe your baby and get your baby to calm down without going straight to food. If your baby does not calm down, you will want to move on to feeding your baby. And of course, as I've discussed, consider the point you are in your eat, wake, sleep cycle. Make sure you see my video or read my blog post on why an eat, wake, sleep cycle works to get your baby sleeping well. If you are not doing an eat, wake, sleep cycle, you'll want to try it. As you can guess from this video, doing so really helps you be able to tell your baby's needs much easier. So if you're just feeding your baby at random times and naps are happening at random times, it's much harder to be able to figure out if your baby is actually hungry, tired, overstimulated, bored. There's so many things that can be with a baby that having a consistent routine and cycle helps you really be able to narrow down your problem solving and get whatever is wrong with your baby fixed as soon as possible. Another important thing for you to figure out is how to tell if your baby has had a full feeding or not. This will really help you. If you just fed your baby an hour ago and you know your baby had a full feeding, then you can guess your baby isn't upset because of hunger and it's because of something else. And knowing that will really help your confidence and will help you troubleshoot better. Something you'll need to understand is how long your baby's feeding should be, and that varies depending on age. I do have a blog post all about how long a newborn feeding should be. I also have a video all about it, so you can read, you can watch, you can do both, and you can learn how to tell how long your baby's feeding should be. You also really want to work to keep your baby awake for feedings. If your baby takes a little power nap during the feeding, then for one thing, your baby is not getting that full feed. If you are feeding for 30 minutes, but your baby is snoozing for 15, then your baby's not actually eating for 30 minutes. Your baby's only eating for 15 minutes. Also, your baby's getting a power nap in there, and that power nap is going to mean that your baby isn't tired enough for nap time, which throws off your whole cycle. I do have a video and a blog post all about how to keep your baby awake for feedings. So if you are struggling to keep your baby awake, make sure you check those out. You also want to be able to recognize what a full feeding actually looks like. And I have a video and a blog post all about that so that you can learn about that. Make sure that you take notes so that you know what is typical for your baby. Each baby is an individual. So all of these hunger cues are common hunger cues babies have. That doesn't mean that every single baby has every single one of these hunger cues. As you watch your baby, you'll come to notice what is typical for your baby. And babies can even change over time. So what was typical 3 months ago may not be typical today. If you need help tracking your schedule and keeping notes, make sure to get my book of logs, which helps you track everything. It's the same thing that I used from my very first child, and I tweaked it and tweaked it and tweaked it with each baby until I got it just right in time for my last baby. And it really helps you to get feedings, naps, playtime, everything to do with your schedule down really well. That wraps up everything you need to know about baby's hunger cues and getting your baby fed. If you have questions, as always, feel free to drop them in the comments and I will answer them. And thanks for watching and have a great day.